on the northern edge of Montana's Rocky Mountains, where pine trees crowd the ridgelines and cell service fades into nothing. The Jensen family cabin stood alone, above a narrow access road carved into the mountain. Locals called it the North Slope. Tourists called it peaceful. Rescue crews would later call it unstable. It was late September, the kind of Montana autumn that tricks you. Bright blue skies, crisp air, snow still weeks away. The mountains looked solid. They weren't. 3 days of unseasonably warm rain had soaked the soil above the ridge. Water slipped beneath layers of shale and clay, loosening what had held firm for decades. No one in town noticed. No warning sirens. No official alert. Just quiet pressure building under the earth, and one 2-year-old boy who wouldn't stop pointing at the trees. Mommy, puppy cry. Ethan Jensen was 27 months old. Blonde curls, round cheeks, still mixing up his tenses. His world was small. His parents, his stuffed moose, and a stray dog he'd named Buddy. Buddy had appeared 2 weeks earlier, a skinny brown and white mutt that lingered near the tree line behind the cabin. Ethan adored him instantly. His mother, Claire, suspected the dog had been dumped by hunters passing through the forest roads. Buddy never came too close to adults, but with Ethan, he would. Every afternoon, Ethan would stand on the back deck and call into the woods, "Buddy, come." And somehow, the dog always did, until the day he didn't. The morning the mountain groaned. Claire Jensen was inside making coffee when she felt it. Not an earthquake. Not exactly. More like a deep shudder, as if something enormous shifted its weight beneath the house. She froze. Silence followed. Outside, the wind moved through the pines like nothing had happened. Then Ethan started crying. She rushed into the living room. He wasn't hurt. He wasn't scared. He was pointing toward the tree line. "Mommy, puppy cry." Claire frowned. "Buddy." Ethan nodded urgently. Buddy stuck. That word, stuck. It would haunt her later. A sound no one expected. At first, Claire heard nothing. Then she stepped onto the deck. The air felt wrong, heavy. The kind of stillness Montana locals recognize before something breaks loose. She listened. There it was, faint, a high, desperate yelp. Then another, not from the forest floor, from somewhere lower. Below the ridge, Claire's stomach tightened. Before she could process it, the mountain answered. A crack like rifle fire split the air. The ground beneath the tree line sagged, and then it happened. The entire north face of the slope gave way. The landslide. It wasn't a cinematic wall of mud like in disaster movies. It was worse. The earth liquefied. Trees tilted, then vanished as rock and soil roared downward in a violent wave. Boulders tumbled like marbles. The sound was deafening, a grinding, tearing avalanche of dirt and stone. Claire grabbed Ethan and dropped to the floor as the cabin shuddered. Windows rattled. The back deck snapped and collapsed into the churning slide. The mountain kept moving for nearly 30 seconds. 30 seconds that felt like a lifetime. And then, silence, but not complete silence. Through the dust and settling debris, a single muffled yelp. The road disappeared. The access road below the cabin was gone, buried under 10 to 15 feet of mud, rock, and shattered timber. Power lines snapped. Cell service died instantly. They were stranded on a partial ridge with unstable ground beneath them. Claire's hands shook as she checked Ethan for injuries. He was crying now, not out of fear. "Buddy," he kept saying. "Buddy stuck. Help, puppy." She wanted to tell him the dog had probably run. She wanted to believe that, but she had heard it after the slide. That sound. It hadn't come from the trees. It had come from inside the debris field. The first rescuers. It took 6 hours before someone reached them. Helicopter out of Kalispell spotted the damaged ridge during a routine patrol after reports of slope instability near. By then, Claire had packed essentials, prepared for evacuation, and tried repeatedly to calm her son. But Ethan wouldn't calm down. A rescue crew rappelled down instead. Among them was Deputy Mark Halloway from the Flathead County Sheriff's Office. He would later admit something no seasoned deputy likes to admit. He almost ignored the toddler. "Buddy, buddy." Mark intercepted him gently. "It's not safe there, buddy. Puppy, under there." He pointed, not randomly. A specific cluster of fallen timber, about 40 feet downslope. Mark glanced at it. There was no visible movement. No sound. The slide had been hours ago. Probably just shock, another rescuer muttered. Claire hesitated. Then she said it. "I heard it too." Mark paused. "You heard a dog, after the slide, crying?" That was enough. The search, rescue protocol didn't require them to search for an animal. The slope was unstable. Secondary slides were possible. But something in Ethan's urgency, the way he refused to look away from that one spot, unsettled Mark. He radioed command. Possible trapped animal, child insisting. A pause. Then approval for a quick visual assessment. Mark and another rescuer secured themselves with lines and moved carefully down the debris. Mud sucked at their boots. The ground shifted under their weight. Faint, a whimper. He froze. The puppy was buried beneath a tangled mass of logs and compacted soil. Only a small air pocket remained. Every movement risked destabilizing the debris. Back up top, Ethan had gone silent. Watching, waiting. Claire held her breath. Then 15, then 20. The whimpers grew fainter. Mark dug with his hands, mud under his nails, rocks cutting his palms. "Come on, buddy," he muttered. He didn't know why he said buddy, but he did. And then he felt fur. The moment. They pulled him out, covered in mud, trembling, one back leg pinned but not broken. The puppy didn't bark, didn't move, just blinked weakly. Mark lifted him carefully. "Got him," he shouted. Up above, Ethan screamed, not in fear, in joy. "Buddy," the sound echoed across the broken mountainside. Even seasoned rescuers felt it. That shift in the air. That moment where something good survives something terrible. The hidden danger. But the story wasn't over. As Mark secured the puppy into a rescue sling, the mountain groaned again, a low rumble. Another section of the slope shifted. "Move," someone yelled. They scrambled upward as a secondary slide tore through the lower debris field right where they had been digging moments earlier. If they had delayed even 30 seconds, they wouldn't have made it, and neither would the dog. Aftermath in Montana. The Jensens were airlifted to safety. The cabin was later deemed uninhabitable. Geologists confirmed prolonged rainfall had destabilized the shale shelf common in Montana's northern Rockies. It was labeled a natural slope failure, but around town, people called it something else, a miracle. The real reason they found him. Weeks later, during a small gathering in Whitefish, Deputy Halloway admitted something to Claire. "We wouldn't have searched that spot," he said quietly. "Not that specific spot." Claire looked at Ethan, who was now inseparable from Buddy. "He just knew," she said. Mark nodded slowly. "No," he said. "He heard something we almost ignored. One last detail. Here's what still unsettles the rescuers. When they reviewed aerial footage later, they noticed something strange. Just before the main slide began, the stray dog had been pacing near the tree line, looking back toward the cabin, barking, almost as if trying to warn them. And the only one who understood him was a toddler. Epilogue. The North Slope today. The North Slope above Flathead National Forest is quiet again. Grass has begun reclaiming the scar where the mountain broke. The Jensen family rebuilt, lower ground this time, and every evening a small boy and a once-buried puppy sit on their new porch, watching the trees, listening carefully, because sometimes, in the Rocky Mountains of Montana, the smallest voice is the one that saves a life.